Hey everybody, this is Alex Merced from alexmercedcoder.com, and this is going to be another one of those front-end builds to go along with all the other ones for the Express Mongo API. The links to all the builds, including the back-end build, is in the video description if you want to see how I built the API first, to kind of see what we're working with. This build is going to be in Stencil JS. Okay, this is actually the second time I'm recording this because the first one I just kind of hit a big wall and ended up becoming like a few hours long. While I went through some intense troubleshooting that I don't want to necessarily put you guys through. So I'm going to do this again. Should go by a lot smoother, although yeah, I'm sure there'll still be some troubleshooting along the way. But StencilJS, let's talk about StencilJS so you can appreciate why it's going to have some of the quirks it's going to have. StencilJS, what it is, it's a tool by the team at Ionic. So they make the Ionic framework, which is used for like building mobile apps and whatnot. It's really a set of components that's available to use in any framework like Angular, React, Vue, but they're really designed to kind of facilitate the building of mobile applications and progressive web applications. So in that case, to be able to be used in different frameworks, they wanted to kind of shift towards their components, not necessarily being sort of having to make a React version, a Vue version, an Angular version, but instead having a set of components that can be used in whatever framework you want. So they looked at the native web component API. And in a separate video, I'll eventually do a version of this where I'll use the native web component API so you can kind of see like how it works if you were to just use that purely. Like I have a bunch of libraries I made for it. There's lit-HTML, which I also plan on doing a video on. But using it by itself can be a little, not the most suave thing in the world for certain reasons. It's gotten better. So the purpose of the Stencil JS compiler is the ability to kind of write code in a familiar way, but what you end up with is a native web component. Okay, so it has a lot of the boundaries and limitations that native web components have. And it's not so much limitations, more than like the way certain features work, which can sometimes be a little bit more complicated than one would have desired, like, you know, having to like work with a shadow DOM and things like that. I like shadow DOM, but it can sometimes get in the way. So, but the way it does it is that it has a very Angular feel in its file structure and use of like TypeScript and decorators. But then it has a very React feel that all these class components, they return JSX and have a render function. So it's kind of like borrowing some of the better ideas from both, but you're still writing class components, so you have to still deal with like this and function binding and things like that. That if you were a React developer, you thought you kind of did away with a long time ago. But it's not bad. It's kind of I don't mind it. Like especially with the decorators, it kind of takes away some of the pain, but not all the pain. I'm not going to be using the router. There's just certain aspects of the router I still have not been able to figure out yet, particularly how the pass props just wasn't able to get it to work. So instead of dealing with that for like an hour again, I'm gonna just kind of do it like I did in some of the previous builds where I just set up a couple components and we'll toggle things on and off, etc. So let's get to it. Okay, npm init. I'm going to create a new stencil project. So to do that, you just do npm init stencil. Okay, and I'm going to choose to create an application. So they have different starters. If you're just trying to create like a one-off component, if you're trying to create a progressive web application, or if you're just trying to create a standard web app, you have all that there. We're going to call this to-dos stencil. Yep. Okay, so that created all that. Now I'm going to make sure that nvm use system. I got to just make sure that I up my version of Node. cd into to-dos stencil. Good. And then I'm going to do an npm install to install all the things. Good. That's installing all the things. All the things need to be installed. Okay. But just to kind of show you, once you're in the folder, it looks like what you're used to. Basically a bunch of configuration files with a source folder, and then all your work is really done in this source folder. Okay, a couple nice things. It does have some CLI features, so you can automate the generation of components, which is really nice. But basically the way it works is you have this components.d.ts, which you don't need to touch. That's automatically generated. Here's like the index.ts, which just exports some things. That kind of makes everything work. Okay. And there's the stencil router, which we're not going to use anyway, so there's that. But here's like the index HTML, and what this does is going to import the JavaScript files that generate those components, and then it's going to inject the app root component right there. Because again, these are native web components, so they work like actual HTML tags. Cool. So essentially that's all this is doing. It's just saying, okay, hey, bundle the components, import the components, which is then defines them, registers them with the custom elements registry. None of this stuff you have to worry about. You just have to worry about your components. Here's just some starter components in there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to generate some of the components I'm going to want to use. So I think it's npm run generate, and then I want to do a form component. That's right. It has to be a kebab case. So to do form, and then it's going to ask me about this. I really don't care about any of these things, so I'll just turn all that off. Nope. Escape. Control C. Okay, what I meant to do is this display to dos. Okay, and I can turn all this off. I don't need any of that. Okay, and see if I go to my components folder, see like there's like those components. Okay, cool. So now we can just start the server, npm start, and see it's going to start building. So we can see sort of like the default project before we start clearing everything out. And on that note, I should probably start the API. So let me go back to here, and let me go open this up in a separate tab. Open an integrated terminal, and let me just go run the API, npm run dev. Okay, so that API is running. Okay, so let's move this to the side here, move this to the side here. And app root, that's sort of like the app component. Because again, native web components have to have a kebab case name, so that's why they all have like app root, app profile. So in each of these, you can have like a CSS file, this testing file, and this TSX file. And this is generally how a component looks like. So a very Angular-like with the component decorator, but then very React-like where you have a class that returns a render function with JSX. Okay, not a bad deal. I'm going to bop out the router. Okay, we're not going to use the router. Okay, what's going to happen here is we're going to have, well, I'm going to create some state first. So I want to do that and these are class properties, the way it works. So the way you declare state is you say at state. Okay, and see that gets imported up here. At state, and you declare your state. So I'm going to want a state called to-dos. It's going to hold my array of to-dos, which I'm just going to say any. So an array of anything. Okay. Now I didn't like that. Oh yeah, that's right. These decorators are functions, so you got to invoke them. It's got to be like that. Okay, and then I'm going to want at state. Okay, show form, which is going to be a Boolean on whether the form should appear or not. I'm going to take these. Actually, I shouldn't take the headphones off. Okay, at the state that I want. Let's just leave it at that for now. Okay, and what's going to happen is that here in the main tag, I'm going to have display to-dos. That's one tag. And then we're going to have to-dos form. That's another tag. Okay, and right now they don't show anything, so because there's nothing in them. So let's go to those components and actually put some text in there. To-do form. Okay, let's just put an H1 that says form. And display to-dos, let's put it in H1 that says display. Okay. looks like I have an extra typo here. Yep. There we go. Okay. Cool. Now, I don't want the form to necessarily automatically display, so what I'm going to do is do it this way. I'm going to say if this dot show form, because again these are class properties, so everything's got to be in reference to this. This dot show form okay, this dot show form or null. Okay, so see it doesn't show up now, and again if I want to turn it on and off, we'll create a function. So we'll say toggle form. And what toggle form does is just say this dot show form equals not this dot show form. And we'll add a little button that says create to-dos. We'll just create for now. Create, and then that button will have a click event. So it's just, again, just like React. So if you've used React, you kind of know how this is going. Okay, on click should be toggle form. So now if I click this create, oh, not quite working yet. Let me refresh. Nope, not quite. Let me open up the dev tools so I can just see if there's any errors. But on this click, this dot toggle form, this dot toggle form, then this dot show form equals not this dot show form. So that's. Let me just see if it's actually changing. Console.log this dot show form. So now if I hit this, create. Huh. So that's kind of what I've expected it, and this should initially be false. So let's declare that. True to do form, but let's see, this is not appearing yet. So that part's kind of concerning. What if I wrap it in a div? Interesting. I don't think it's really refreshing, so let's see here. Yeah, something's wrong with that. Ah, server stopped running. That's why. Okay, and why? There must have just been too many errors. Just make sure that the server's not well, it is running here. But technically that should be having a different result, so I'm going to restart it. Sometimes you just need to do that. Because technically even then it should be starting this as false. So I should have gotten a console log of false on the first click of that button. Interesting. And then we see that this .show form is true on subsequent renders, but we also see that it is not updating. The UI is not updating. All sorts of really weird little quirks with this. Just think about this ternary, this dot show form. No. Okay, well, we'll come back and play with that afterwards. Sure, I'm missing something. Oh, I know why. Wait, no, that's right. This dot toggle form. Nope, that's all fine and good. Okie dokie. Well, let's just go get our API to-dos. Get to-dos. Okay. And what I want to do here is we want to make this an async function actually. And what we're going to do is a const response equals fetch, and we should have a URL property. URL equals http://localhost 10,000 because that's where we have the API running /todos. So then we say to this.url, and that should be await. And then we're going to say const data equals await response.json. And then we're going to say that this.todos equals data. Okay, and then we are going to want this to start. And since this is a web component, it's going to use the native web component API, which has a function built into it called connected callback. This method runs when the component first opens or initiates. So in this case, we're going to want to do connected callback and run get to dos here. Okay, and that's that. And then we're going to want to pass those to-dos to display to-dos. So to-dos equals to-dos. Okay, it's going to complain about that because I haven't defined that prop on to-dos. Okay, or on the display to-dos. So I'm going to head over to display to-dos. And what I need to do is in this component, I have to define at prop and say, okay, hey, this prop is going to be called to-dos, which is an array of really anything. And then we can render those to-dos. So I'll just do that here. So we'll say if to-dos if we actually get something back as to-dos, then what I want to do is put in a div for each to-do, where there's an h3, and it's going to be the to-do. Oh wait, no, I want a map, so I got a map first. So, and that's going to be this.todos. This.todos equals this.todos.map, and that's going to be for each to do. We do a thing. Okay, so we're going to have a div, and we're going to return that div. Return a div with a key prop of todo._id from the database. Then h3, we want to say this dot or to do dot reminder. That's going to be like the to do. And then to do dot completed, which is whether it was completed or not. Okay. I think we're missing some characters. Yep. Okay, yeah, I see. This should have a colon after it, and then after that should be null. And actually, let's make this h1 no to-dos. Let's refresh. Should be instance member. Oh, I see. This should be this dot to-dos. Okay, and see we're getting the to-dos, which is good. Okay, but I just need to do another little ternary over here. This dot to do, if it's completed, just show me a O. And if it is not completed, then show me an X. Okay. Cool. So we have that. So now we want to create to-dos. So again, now we get back to this whole, like, I want this to reflect whether this is going to show up or not. So what I'm going to do here, I'll just maybe wrap it in a function. So say show form display, and all this function is going to do is return some JSX. So if this dot show form and I'm going to want the console.log this dot show form. I just want to make sure, like, why is this being funny? Okay, so if this show form is true, then it should just return form or to-dos form. Otherwise, it should return null. Okay, so let's see if that works. So we'll say form display. Okay, now let's see if I hit create. So it's running the function, but it doesn't seem to be running console.log. Jeez. Yeah, so it's just skipping this if statement. That's the part that's weird. So we get the console log, and we can see that if this show form is true, I'll just do that, just in case. Yeah, that if statement never runs. But the console log is running. That is just really weird. This dot form display. And then show form should be a boolean. That's what we're using, this dot show form. And I swear this was working before. And like we're instantiating it as false. And technically I should be seeing like the H1 form up here. Huh. Now let's see what happens if I change this to copy this. And I put it in here. There's that one running. See, in that case, we see it. Okay. See, even when it's true, I'm getting falsy. If this dot show form equals true. That doesn't make sense. If this dot show form and I can see this is what the value of it is, so this dot show form does equal true some of the times. And then even if I do it this way, okay, so then we'll just maybe have the form on there all the time. Fine. Okay, so there's the form. Fine. And now let's just create some other state. So other state that I want is what I want is a property called at reminder at state reminder, and again this will, why we need this will become apparent later. At reminder, which will be a string, at state completed. This will be a boolean. At state will be ID, which will be a string. And I want a thing called action, which will be called a string. Cool. So first things first, what I want to do is pass into the form, okay, reminder completed ID and action. So what I'm going to do is say this. Dot object with actually nope, that's not gonna work. So reminder equals this dot reminder. Okay, I'm going to do this a few times. It's going to complain until I actually add the prop to the underline. This dot completed underscore ID equals this dot underscore ID, and this action equals this dot action. Okay, so now let's go over to the form and bring in these props. Add prop reminder, which will be a string. Add prop completed, which will be a boolean. Add prop, which is going to be an underscore ID, which will be also a string, and add prop action, which will also be a string. Okie dokie. Now let's sketch out the form. Then we're going to have an input type equals text. And we're going to have another input of type equals checkbox. And then we'll have one more input. Type equals submit. Okay, value equals submit. Okay, so there's the form. And what we want to do I want to do a controlled form, but let's see how that works. Okay, let's bring in these props. Add prop. Oh, we have them already. So let's try to do this. What if I said value equals reminder with this dot reminder? Okay, let's just do this. Control F. Everywhere I see big string, we will replace with small string. And the same thing here. There we go. And now no one's complaining. And then this one's going to be checked. This is the property I want to bind. This dot checked. Or this dot completed. Oh, really? Okay, fine. Okay. Now let's see here. Approved. I want to make sure I give these like default values. So this is going to be an empty string. This is going to be by default false. This is by default going to be an empty string. Okay. And let's do this. Let's do a handle input, because again, it's not going to be handle change like in React. It's going to be handle input. Okay. Handle input, and that receives the event. And I just want to console.log the event. Just want to debate whether I think I can do a controlled form or am I going to do an uncontrolled form. Handle input. And then I want to put that, say here, on input. This dot handle input. Oh, that's fine. Okay, and let's just see here. What do I get in my console when I type in here? Okay, an input event, and the target. Yeah, I get this app root deal. Now we go to the path. The first one is input, but it's not always for some reason. So what happens if I give the input a name? Name equals reminder. I will refresh this. We go to path, input, name reminder. So let's see here, event path 0 name. Let's see if that's consistent. Okay, that could work. Okay. So what we might do is this. Control X. Okay, const target equals, let's just make sure that does what I think it's going to do. Console.log target. Okay. So let's see here. Okay, well, I didn't put an on input on that. Okay, perfect. Okay, so that, I think we got our mechanism for this. Just because what happens, because of the shadow DOM, what happens is that when the DOM reports the event back to you, it doesn't report it as that element giving you the event. It's giving it to you as the app root, the component where the shadow DOM begins giving you the event. So essentially you have to kind of use this path parameter in the event to kind of dig through to its true path. So now that we've discovered that, what we want to do then is we're going to do an if statement. And I'm just going to keep this simple. If the target.name, because we only have two inputs, target.name equals completed, do one thing. If not, do another. The reason being is that we need the check property when we're talking about the checkbox deal. Okay, so let's do name equals completed. Okay, and so essentially what I want to do here is this dot remind, if it's completed, it's like this dot completed equals target dot checked, and if it's this dot reminder equals target dot value. And then I just want to make sure that I also add this on input event over here. Okay. So let's refresh. Okay, props are immutable, so that's fun. Okay, so what I need then is to do it this way. Okay. Then what we're going to do is we're going to create add state form data, which will just say is anything, and it's going to equal an object where it has a property called reminder, which is going to be this dot reminder. It's going to have a property called really okay, fine. Let's do this. Okay, reminder underscore ID. I should just put that there, just reminder, and title. No, completed equals false. Okay, and essentially what I'm going to do is say this dot form data dot reminder dot completed, and this form data dot reminder. Okay, and then afterwards I want to console.log this dot form data to see if it's actually changing. Okay. Okay, that works good for me. Yeah. Okay, that works. Okay, not exactly the way I would have done it in React, but seems to be close enough. Okay, and again, the reason I have to do this if statement is because I need to grab it from a different property when it's a checkbox. I need to check when is it the checkbox, when is it not the checkbox. So that way I'm grabbing from the checked value of the input versus the value of the input, just to kind of understand like why I did that. Cool, so I don't need this console log anymore. This is fine with me. Okay. So that's all set. Then what's going to happen is we need a handle submit function. Okay, and that's also going to receive the event, which we're going to do event.preventDefault to prevent the refresh. And what I'm going to do, okay, again here in the form, we're going to set up this event on submit equals curly brackets. We'll pass in a function that receives the event that then invokes handle submit and passes it the event. Again, why are we doing that? For the purposes of binding the event and making sure that this is referring to the class, not to the form. Okay, so that's all fine and good. Let's just make sure that's working. Console.log form data. Okay. Okay. Cool. Now let's just see if I edit this. Let's refresh. If I edit this, I hit submit. Okay, the only thing I do realize is that the value doesn't bind. This does not end up having the effect that I want. What if I do this? This dot form data dot reminder. This dot form data dot reminder. Okay. That looks fine at the moment. Now, I do occasionally want to like, well, we can do this as like connected callback. Connected callback. Okay, and what I want to do is like if this dot action equals update, then what I want you to do is this dot form data dot reminder equals this dot reminder. This dot form data dot this dot form data dot reminder, this dot form data dot completed equals this dot completed, and this dot form data dot underscore ID equals this dot underscore ID. It's only if we need to update. Okay. Okay. Fun and good. And now we can figure out this handle submit thing. Okay, so we're going to say if action equals create, we do one thing. If action equals update, we do another. Okay. It should be this dot action. Oh, classes. Okay, so now if it's create, again, either way, we want to make sure we call event.prevent default. Okay, if it's going to be create, we're going to pass in this dot handle create, which we haven't defined yet, and we're going to pass in the form data, or this dot form data, and this dot handle update when this dot form data in that situation. Okay, so let's just define those props. Add prop handle create which should be a function, and then add prop handle update, which should be a function. Okay. So now we need to define those functions and pass those down as props. So first we're going to go over here and define the handle update. Okay, so async handle update. And in that case, I generally want to kind of start kind of like this const. No, we don't even need to do that. We'll wait fetch this dot URL. And actually, this is going to be handle create. I don't want to do the update one yet. Handle create. And the method is post headers. It's going to be headers would be content type. Application JSON. And then the body will do JSON dot stringify, and we're going to stringify the data that's passed in. Okay, and then essentially when that is done, then I want it to run get to do's again. Okay. Then what I want is I'll reset some things. I want to at least so actually I don't really need to reset much there. I'll just create a reset state function. Reset state. And actually what I want to do is I want to do this dot get to do's in there too. But I want to set this dot action back to create. I want to set this dot reminder back to string. This dot underscore ID should equal an empty string. And this dot completed will equal false. And the other state I want to reset equals false. And just in case I decide to add the toggle the form again, which I do want to do, this show form will equal false. Okay. So then back here, we will reset state, and that'll be that. Let's pass this function down. Let's do something here. This const form equals, then we'll say this dot show form. Then we're to want to inject this, Control X. And then otherwise return null. And I put that here. Form. Okay, and then toggle form does do that, so let's see here. Let's just make this more explicit then. Let's say if this dot show form, or actually we just do this, this dot show form equals this dot show form, and if it's true, it is going to equal false, and if it's false, it'll equal true. We'll see if this version works better. I mean, it works, but this doesn't. The render is not reevaluating as it should when you change state, which I just find that very odd. Okay. Why? That's technically how it should go. And I swear I had it working earlier. Actually, let me just take a look at my previous version of this, for the one that I bombed, and let's just see if I did anything different when I got to that part. Components, app root. So what I did? This dot show form, yeah. Ah, okay, maybe the method decorator is adding something that I'm not doing. This dot show form. I mean, that's pretty much the same thing I did, and that was working before, so I guess we'll try that again. But what I will do is I will add the add method decorator, see if that makes a difference. Add method. Okay, and that imported up here? No, got imported. That's there. So refresh. Let's try this out. Yeah. ¿Por qué? Just doesn't like it. This dot show form and toggle form. That toggles it just fine. And let's just see here. Is the render function running again? Each time console.log cheese. So technically, if it's re-rendering, I should see cheese multiple times. See, it's rendering twice off the bat, but never again. Interesting. It's going to bug me, so I'm going to look at the docs. Stencil Js Docs. Okay, so components, reactive data, yep. We'll fire a method it's attached to when a user updates a property. Come on, yeah. Okay, we get that. Rendering methods. When a component updates because of a state change, props or state change, the render method is scheduled to run, which we did. Handling arrays and objects. To update an array or object data, use the following techniques. Well, we are updating a primitive. So, what is the deal? Is there anything I did different about how I declared the state at state? Yeah, I'm importing it. At state. Okay, what I'll do is like, State decorator can be used to manage internal data. This means when the user cannot modify this data from outside the component, it's modified however it sees fit. Any changes to state will cause the component's render function to be called again. Which we did. Okay. So I don't know if you guys are seeing it, but I am changing the state. So we should be getting a change in the render function. This dot show form. See what happens when I do that. Okay, refresh. So you get 2 falses because it renders twice, which makes sense because we update to-dos. Okay, and then that triggers an update. But when I click this button, why is that not technically a update? Okay, is there a way to force a render? Okay. Okay, let's see here. Force a render in Stencil. Okay. I'm not going to read through all that right now. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do instead, because or otherwise this is just going to drive me nuts. I'm going to make this a number, and we're going to make it 1. Okay. Actually started as 0. Okay, and if this dot show form, we'll do is if this dot show form equals 1, then it's false. Otherwise, it equals 1. It'll equal 0. Otherwise, it'll equal 1 again. So I'll just toggle between those 2. And that should do that. This will change it back to 0. And then this should still evaluate the same, because 0 should evaluate as false. Because maybe a numerical change would be a more specific state change. So I hit here. Yeah, it's just not triggering a state change. I guess that's not going to work out for us today. Okay, we'll come back to that. Okay, well, let me just pass down this function. So again, we made this handle create function. Handle create equals. And then again, if you're watching this video and you can see where I'm must be misthinking or going wrong, please put it in the comments. Okay. Okay, and that doesn't go there. Control X, that should be passed down to form. So technically that goes here. Okay. Cannot find name handle create. Let's see here. Yeah, there's a handle create. It's there. Oh, but this is this dot handle create. Okay, and if so in this case for now, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to default this to 1. Does that make the form appear? Yep. Okay. So right now, we go back to form, and we do the handle submit. It's going to call the handle create function, this dot form data. So let's see. Eat cheese. Now let's see, was there a network request? Slash to-dos. It was the original. Okay, so I'm not sure if it received that function the way I expected it to. So this dot handle create, which should be passed down as a function prop. So that should be from app root. Okay, so let's just add a console log in the handle create just to see, like, hey, is the function being invoked? Console log dot cheese. We'll add a little y cheesy so it doesn't get confused with other console logs. I'm going to refresh. And no, I don't see cheesy, so that means that function isn't running. So just make sure I wired it correctly in the to-do form. So okay, we click on submit. It's going to trigger handle submit. Here is handle submit. If this dot action equals create. So the question is, what does this dot action equal? Console.log this dot action. So basically, I'm going to expect one of two things. Probably this dot action is going to be undefined because that seems to be a theme. And two, the other thing that might be an issue is maybe handle submit's not running. In that case, I wouldn't see a console log at all. So let's see which one it is. So I type some stuff in here, I hit submit, and see action is undefined. So it's like this is like not receiving like any of the props. Okay, let's just do this. So that begs the question, how about the other props? This dot reminder, this dot underscore ID. Okay, let's refresh. Let's type some stuff in. Is any of it defined? Those are defined, but I think I gave those default values. No, I didn't. But I do set them up in the connected callback. No, I don't. So those are being received. Why is this dot action not being received? Let's go take a look. Action, this dot action. And then if I go over here where we define action, oh, I didn't give action a default value. I thought I did. Create. Okay, save, refresh, eat cheese. Okay. Post to localhost 3333 undefined. That's not good. So should be taking this URL. So that means that's something we got to fix down here and handle create this URL. And this dot URL should be this. Down over here. Okay, so that's interesting that I tried to make a request there. Slash undefined. Okay, I think I see the problem. It's because of the contextual stuff. This dot URL. Oh, binding functions. So annoying. Okay, so let me think about that. So what I need to do instead is pass something like this down. Okay, so that way it's still in the context of this component. This dot handle create D. Okay, so let's see if that does the trick. Oh, I'm so glad React moved away from class components, and then that's felt and just works the way it works. Okay, to do that reminder. Okie dokie. So I think that would have just been all I needed to do. So let's just see if this works now. Yep, that was it. Okay, so the issue there it was context. So what the problem is that even though I wrapped it in an arrow function when I used it inside there, it's still being used within the context of that class. So that class was becoming the URL. So that, and there, see there, we added the thing. So that's good. Okay. So far so good. And then that begs the question up here, far as this onClick, this toggle form. Maybe it's the same issue. What I need to do is wrap this in an arrow function because of, you know, silly binding, okay, and execution context and all that fun stuff. Okay, is that going to turn out to be it? Yes, it was. Oh, the frustration. Oh, classes, how you frustrate me sometimes. Got it. Okay, so we had a eureka moment, right? Yay! Okay, so we're already over an hour on this. Okay, and we're just wrapping up create. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to break this up into 2 videos. So this will be part 1. So we got the, you know, show, and we got the ability to display and create done. In the second video, which should probably move along faster, we'll get the remainder of this build complete. So I'm going to stop this now and then continue on for the second video.